Hey everybody, welcome to Web3 Unpacked. I'm Matt Sky, and I'm here with Rich Pasqua. Rich, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Welcome, everyone.
And today we are kind of just doing a bit of a rundown on what we're seeing in the space in terms of mass adoption. We're just seeing a lot of interesting little inklings of Web3 growing, and I think maybe we're just going to kind of talk about some of that, go kind of high level, give you guys a bit of an update on what we're thinking about these different movements, and maybe let's start, Rich. Let's start with Disney. This was something that I thought was pretty interesting. It was covered by a lot of outlets. It's pretty rare that a job posting gets headlines, but Disney is hiring a legal NFT team right now, and so that's getting headlines. A lot of people are speculating what this could look like, what a Disney NFT loyalty program could look like. We heard some news in July about a bunch of different partners working with them. How significant do you think that is when Disney gets into this space? To me, that's a sign that this is really taking hold, that Web3 is becoming something that you can't just say this is a speculative thing anymore.
Yeah, exactly. What I would start by saying is, I've spent many years working with Nickelodeon, and obviously keeping a close eye on Disney as it relates to characters and especially interactive experiences. And both brands really did a great job of pulling you into immersive experiences. So the idea of Disney getting involved in the NFT space absolutely does not surprise me. I think they should be there, and I think there are a tremendous amount of beyond loyalty. The loyalty programs are great, and Starbucks is doing it, and so many other companies. I want to see what Disney really does in this space, because you can open it up with, really jumping into NFTs and utilizing the technology properly. It could be gamified. It could be, skins. It could be characters. It could be, I think they're prime for that collectibles kind of environment.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and also it's one of those things where, just like Apple, you and I have been talking about Apple quite a bit these days, Matt, and I want them in the space. And I think we're going to hit on that in just a few minutes, but I want Disney in this space. I want to see what they're going to do, as far as pushing the technology, but also opening the doors for a lot of people. And I think kids are there's a tremendous amount you can do with kids as far as simple transactions and trading and, learning, or edutainment, as we used to call it at Nickelodeon. Edutainment opportunities to kind of, show kids how to save, how to collect, how to, create. I think the world is open, I think, for them.
And what's funny too is that a lot of people, I think they're very critical, because when some of these larger corporations take Apple, Disney, etc., maybe they aren't pure Web3 plays. Maybe there's a bit of a middle way, or even Starbucks. But to me, I'm not looking at that as much as just the excitement factor that we're legitimizing these technologies, that we're legitimizing blockchain. I would rather see an incremental step into the space rather than, you're not going to get everything at once, right? And I would rather not see these companies fighting the progress of what this can be, of digital ownership in a real sense. So to me, it's a big step that they're even embracing. It almost makes me think a little bit about like what we saw with the music industry giving resistance to Napster, and then what became ultimately Spotify, and a very lucrative new way of consuming digital media.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just getting back to the point of like introductions to this world, I think a lot of like bigger players like Starbucks, like Disney, they'll have very 2.0 components to it. And that's kind of where they'll start. But introducing the idea of wallets and collecting, and, the idea of NFTs are going to be sprouted. How much of the blockchain they're going to utilize for these types of transactions and or experiences, we don't know yet. And frankly, it's okay to push in through the 2.0 door. I think it's totally fine.
Just occurs to me too, we'll have to get our previous guest, Emily Landon, on this one for this job posting that they're putting out.
Yeah, she would be perfect.
Yeah,
Emily
job summary. They want full life cycle legal advice and support for global NFT products. They want due diligence for NFT blockchain third-party marketplaces, day-to-day legal advice for NFT cryptocurrency related matters. So, I mean, this sounds like they're kind of serious, 5 to 8 years minimum qualifications. So certainly interesting to see a big company like that entering the space.
Absolutely.
I think, like we were saying too, when you look at Apple, they're also making some moves in there, and they've received some criticism for this. But I think basically the headline, first of all, is basically that Apple is now allowing NFTs on its App Store, but there is this sort of 30% App Store fee that's continuing. So, okay, you can do NFT sales, but Apple wants to take a cut. I think that's okay. I think that makes sense. You know.
It's not a small cut to begin with.
That is
and
true.
I think that's, I mean, I think people, especially developers and product innovators and, product developers are, still feel a little sting with 30% from Apple. Look, they're a premium, platform for advertisers and apps. So I get it, but then you mix that with NFTs and the world of blockchain, and blockchain is supposed to be a little bit more organic. And there's a lot of brands out there that are just kind of like start for free, get involved. They're trying to build their audience. They don't have to build their audience; they can go straight to a monetary model, or a monetization model. So. That's their thing. And, people, obviously tons of people use their platform. And again, like I'll say it again, we've said it before. I'm really happy that Apple is opening the door for third-party developers to kind of come into their world, their app world and their app store and develop for this. It means they're paying attention. And potentially they have bigger plans on the horizon. So it's all really good.
I agree. I think, I'm just reading a tweet here from Tim Sweeney, CEO of Epic Games, took a pretty strong position there. It says, now Apple is killing all NFT app businesses it can't tax, crushing another nascent technology that could rival its grotesquely overpriced in-app payment service. Apple must be stopped. I don't see it that way. Do you? I think there's enough room for everyone. I'm much happier to see the mass adoption in this case, and moving in a path toward more. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to kind of follow along with that thought, Matt. I think that, the idea of the walled garden, it's not my favorite thing in the world. You do need kind of strict guidance on what, to maintain quality. You need strict guidance put in place and guidelines. As long as you follow it, I'm not sure why anyone else, everyone shouldn't be able to join. But the idea of blockchain is, it's going to be borderless. It already is.
Yeah.
So if you look at it, as NFTs and the world of blockchain and dApps and all that good stuff, it's kind of starting out borderless. And I think once people realize that you're not tethered to a hardware device or even software or an OS, I think there are big changes on the horizon for some big players out there.
Yeah, so. And I think you're right. It's a little bit like we've talked about before when we envision the metaverse. It's not that singular source, but you're jumping in and out of different ecosystems, different worlds. Maybe you do pay the 30% when you jump into Apple's world, but by no means are you locked into Apple's world. And if anything, if you're becoming familiar with the wallet, if you're becoming familiar with crypto and what that process is, not unlike what we just did at the Solana store with our Phantom wallets, now you're aware, and now you can bounce around. So
yeah, I mean, it's just like the metaverse conversation we've been having. I think blockchain and the metaverse, the idea of the metaverse is really supposed to be borderless, right? So the idea of co-opting Meta as a name, Meta, the metaverse, is a little off-putting to some people. I'll echo what I've said before in past podcasts. Go for it, Mark Zuckerberg. We want people to kind of get involved. But I think it's supposed to be borderless, right? And it's the connective tissue that's really going to bring different platforms together and let people wander and explore. So.
And mentioning Meta, Facebook, they also made an announcement that would be September 29th today, that they are also going to allow basically people to connect their wallets and share digital collectibles. This is on the Instagram, Facebook platforms. So another instance of mass adoption. It kind of feels like it's just all snowballing at once, like everyone is waking up at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, with all with Facebook and, I won't get too much into it, but the idea of knowing your audience, right? So there are games that are, my kids, tons of kids. I just had a few conversations about other people's kids playing Roblox and Minecraft, and they're already used to these kind of little microtransactions and, tokenization of things and gamification of things and collecting. That's an instant starter for me, a starting point, jump off platform for a lot of people, especially Gen Z coming up, right? So the idea of, I'm wondering, and I don't have the answers or data in front of me, but like demographics, is it really that important to Facebook users, right?
But maybe Instagram, because that seems very Gen Z, right?
Yeah, Instagram, but I'm talking specifically about the Facebook platform, but Facebook, Instagram, yeah, I could see that really being interesting. Having a storefront for yourself, not just a profile, a little storefront. You can sell NFTs, you can sell other NFT wares. I think it's kind of interesting. And I was just concerned about the demographic. That's all.
I see. I know this would be a whole different episode to unpack, but I just want to get your thoughts on it because it's something I'm thinking about a lot. We've seen a lot of news now. DALL-E 2 is open to the public. So I was goofing around with that a little bit and playing with Midjourney as well and just comparing the two. And I'm just going to be so interested to see like what happens with NFTs because we're going to have such an unbelievable avalanche of artwork now. I mean, you just put in 4 keywords and you can create variations of the same image, which is exactly what the NFT sales of today at least are. I don't know if that helps NFTs or if it hurts it because there's just going to be so much art that we're just swimming in it to a point where we take it for granted.
A couple of points on DALL-E and Midjourney, which it's addictive. I know we've been collecting. We've been doing things with it at here at ARC with the design team and the development team and everyone else in between, having tons of fun. But at the end of the day, it's just like everything else that we've learned and experienced since the 50s, 60s, all through history. It's a tool, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's a scary tool for a lot of people right now because it's like, oh my God, I'm a photographer, I'm an illustrator, am I going to get eliminated? Well, we don't know the answer to that point, right now, but it is a tool. And at the end of the day, what'll happen is I think as it relates to the NFT world, you're going to have more of these, handcrafted artisans like the Murakamis, and these modern pop artists who've developed names for themselves in the standard art world, if you will, doing more collaborations, with the likes of Nike and Adidas and whoever else. And those are the ones that people have been really going after. Those are the ones that are kind of trying, if not are, maintaining their value. Everything else is kind of fallen down by the wayside. There's tons of stuff, Beeple had a great story, and he's just, an average Joe graphic designer, props, He made amazing stuff every single day, and he shared his journey. So it was a little bit more than just the art itself. The story was even better.
Well, Beeple having, I think, the record for the highest selling NFT, right? Well, it was around 60 million or something, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was $69 million, which is the highest dollar amount for a living artist.
Incredible.
Which is pretty amazing.
But do you think of Beeple? Because I look at now, when we're looking at AI art, I'm seeing a lot of the, not to go too down this road, but I'm seeing Beeple type work that people can generate with keywords. Do you think Beeple embraces the technology, or do we almost want to see your work in progress now? Like, we want a human certified NFT. We'll actually watch you buy the video of the artist making it, just so that we know it was made by a person.
Honestly, Matt, I think if we're starting at this point with the Midjourneys, it's so damn good. It's so incredible.
That's the thing. This is V1. This isn't like, what's Midjourney V5? What's Dolly 8?
It is what you'll see is artists will be artists, and being an artist is being able to transform mediums, history, stories, writing. It's about transformation. So I don't think you'll see a lot of great artists. They'll spend time with the tools, but they'll also learn how to break it. And once they break it, they'll be able to truly transform and create something new. So you might, it might be something that you integrate into a live installation, or a rock, like a DJ set or a concert. And maybe it goes beyond, and it's now you've created an avatar on the fly at a party in the metaverse, listening to Dead Mouse, DJ at this remote island, in the metaverse, and you're generating your own art, and you can maybe project it, on the walls, or something. Who knows? I mean, there's a million things, but at the core end of it is, artists will learn how to break it. They break things. Yeah. And then they reinvent. Right. That's the whole idea. I think this is meant to be broken and used in different ways. How they use it, just don't know. We don't know yet. But I think it's an amazing technology. It freaks me out quite a bit, but I like it. It's fun.
Well, it occurs to me what you just said, and I think this actually ties perfectly into what we're seeing with Metaverse developments in terms of Facebook's efforts and the new Cambria project headsets. Maybe the artists of the next generation are not locked into a box. We're kind of used to the idea that an image exists in a square, and that's what the artist created. But if it takes seconds, literally seconds now, to prompt a beautiful image within a square, like you said, an artist has to rethink the paradigm. So maybe the paradigm is, I'm going to generate an artificially intelligently generated universe for you to interact with. And that's what I create as an artist now. I no longer confine it to a small space, almost like digital installations, digital worlds, and you're directing its pathway, but maybe it lives organically somewhat. It kind of redevelops itself, but you set those core parameters. So oh, this is a Beeple world, or this is whoever it may be world.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine, going to your point, breaking out of the square, NFT looking box?
Yeah. It's very confined right now. Yeah.
And rendering complete VR scenes that you can share with maybe a cinematographer or a special effects artist. And it's like, here's what I want. Here's what's going on. Or create these lush interactive storybooks. I think, the ideas are endless with this, but I think it could be even broken even further, where you get lost in worlds. I think that's what people, and I like the analogy of, breaking out of that NFT cube and just kind of going beyond. And I think we're going to see that, and we're going to see it pretty soon, I think, given the way that this whole environment is truly picking up speed.
And even now we're seeing early signs of that convergence of physical, digital. We've had some conversations about phygitals, where you buy a product and then you own it in both the digital landscape and the real landscape. I've been doing some research and seeing some incredible technologies in terms of holographic displays for NFTs where, it just looks like an actual object. So the lines are blurring, and I think it's almost like if you embrace these technologies, you can be at the forefront and you have a creative palette you never even imagined possible. But a lot of people might panic and recede and be scared. But if you embrace it, I think what new innovation hasn't terrified everyone at first? I'm sure motion pictures were terrifying in the beginning, or talkies, or color. Everyone thought these innovations were fads, and video games, And now,
look at the quite simple illustration of this that most people overlook is the Macintosh. Mm-hmm. It took, ruby lith and masking and razor blades and hand setting type out of one person's hands and put them into another person's hands or the next generation's hands. Interestingly enough, I worked for newspapers when I was a kid, and I used to have to hand cut text, and it wasn't really a jump for me because I was already into computers and doing design work at that age and those years. But I got to see how things were passed on, setting hot type and, using waxing machines to, set images in and masking. It's just passed on. And these tools, they're always met with a certain amount of resistance, but then they're adopted, and they're not even tools yet. They're just fun things that developers are stretching their minds with. And they're setting it free, and let's see what happens. And I think that's kind of the more interesting way to approach these kind of technically artistic type of expressions like DALL-E and Midjourney.
As we sort of talk about that and new spaces, that gets me thinking about our trip last week, Solana Spaces, which was pretty interesting. And that was a really interesting take in terms of seeing what Web3 might start looking like in the real world. And I have to give credit to Solana for building out a store like that. What a bold move in terms of really making it interactive. And I don't know, you were watching it too. I'm sure we were a little bit doing our own thing, but we saw people who were kind of experiencing NFTs, experiencing crypto for the first time. And you could just kind of see their those light bulbs click, because in a store, someone can walk you through it and it just becomes real for them. It's no longer a concept. And you made a purchase, and we both bought some cool stuff. But you made a purchase, and it was pretty seamless once we got through the hump.
Yeah. I think, Matt, you hit on a really good point, because at one point I was like, who is in the store? How crowded is it? And what's going on? Are people actually engaging with wallets? What are they doing? And you know what? We walked through the mall. We found it. Beautiful storefront, well curated. It reminded me of a little bit of like Williamsburg, Brooklyn hipster meets kind of a cleaner, refined tech store or Apple or something like that. It was a nice mix of kind of urban culture, NFTs, technology, and the place was kind of grooving. And it was, there was a good amount of people there, and they were all asking questions. They were engaged with either the kiosks, their wallets, and or the staff, who are incredibly knowledgeable. And it was a good experience. There's not tons of things to browse, but therein it's kind of the mousetrap that pulls people in and says, there's something new happening here. And by rights, half that mall wouldn't even know what Solana is. But yet there are people wandering in, or people journeying there like you and I, we made a pilgrimage. We want to go see what's going on.
Right, it was kind of a pilgrimage.
It was good. It was a really good experience. And as soon as you purchase, you're like, we all trade, we swap, we buy NFTs, we do whatever we do with our wallets every day or whenever. But now when you actually experience it in the physical world and how darn easy it is to just scan a QR code and you're paid, and the funds came out, you paid X amount in Sol or Ethereum or whatever you're using. It's a good feeling. It's fun. And we recommend it for everyone. Go do it. It's kind of fun. Some cool NFTs on display, some really great artwork, and then some fun swag. Which we were laughing about, Matt, right? This is the only store that they get you to pay for their swag.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It was all about the experience.
Right. No, that was great stuff. And when you pay in crypto, this is in Hudson Yards for people not familiar in New York City. You get 50% off. We were kind of talking about it. That's a pretty good discount. I mean, you could just make that your new H&M. You just buy all your stuff at the Solana store. They need to just build a whole department store stuff. Now. They need maybe that's the route. Yeah. The route for mass adoption.
They had some fun pop art type of stuff, like the traditional logo kind of T-shirts and hoodies. Excuse me. But it was really, really kind of fun. Yeah, you can outfit your whole wardrobe there. Right?
But I'm excited. I'm excited to see
including socks.
Yes. Well, first starting with socks, but I'm always losing them. But and it got me thinking too. I've been using. This is just my first pass, but I've been playing with the Stepin app. We saw some Stepin merch there, and that was cool to finally see it kind of in real life. Just you realize that these things that feel exclusively digital, when you walk into a store, it makes it more real. Maybe it's just an emotional thing more than anything. But I think. Go ahead.
I'm Matt. I'm also interested in kind of like obviously. One of the first things I said, I think I said probably in the video loop that's going to be playing over this one is I'd like to see the phone or even just a mock-up.
Yeah, I know.
And the hardware is the hardware. I'm not getting too excited over that. Everything looks like a silver brick. Like
relatively simple Android device, run-of-the-mill. It'll have the stats, but it's what you expect, hopefully.
Yeah, so I'm more interested in, say, even nothing. Partnering with blockchain technologies to create a blockchain-enabled phone. What does that really mean? And how does the hardware accelerate the experience, enhance it, through cryptography, make it safer? It's probably all of the above. If it is hardware-enabled, if it's just software changes, a lot of people will do that. Apple will do that. Apple will probably come up with a chip. Samsung will probably come up with a tiny chip that goes, it's blockchain enabled now. It has hardware encryption built into it or whatever it may be. It'll become that next advertising and marketing stunt or whatever it is. But right. I'm really curious as to what the specs are on the phone and digging into that a little bit more.
And I think it's the same thing that hopefully what we're going to see is the same thing we've seen when Apple releases new product categories. So when iPad came out, people didn't necessarily know what an iPad could do. And when you have a crypto phone of sorts, a blockchain phone, an NFT phone, a dApp store, a true dApp store on mobile, people, we maybe think, well, what would you do on that? But that's kind of what we have yet to, the developers have to step up and show us. But I think they will once they have that playground. So, they're laying the foundation for innovation here.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. And then the one of the things which I'm actually more than the phone itself is the marketplace, and even the dApp store. We're like, the
dApp
store. What I'm really excited about is the dApp store, and that's going to be really fun, just to kind of like browse and kind of dream a little bit, download a few things, see what happens. It's going to be really interesting, but. How, just like the other artistic story we were telling before, dialogue we had, it's really up to the creators, how engaging those new NFTs are. And, if it's just NFTs that are Bored Apes, guess what? I'm going to get bored. No pun intended.
That was the intention the whole time.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with Bored Apes or any of these things or CryptoPunks or whatever you're buying these days. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. I think it's great, but we haven't even scratched the surface of what NFTs actually can do from a pure play gamification and pure play utility. We haven't seen it yet. So that is the more exciting part.
Well, something I think about a lot is our phones, and I think Apple's been thinking about this a lot, and how they tether to our fitness and our activities. And so when I've been playing with Steppen, for example, which is using Sol, it's a great and fun little thing to play with. But I feel like the next phase, it has to be more behind the scenes. But what I could see happening with a phone like the Solana Mobile is that maybe it automatically is Steppen enabled. It's a part of your fitness apps. You're just walking. You're not even noticing that you've opened an app, and you're earning coins. You're earning rewards. You're playing a game, almost games without intentionally opening and playing a game. You're just playing games because you're playing life. You're earning tokens for various activities.
Yeah, it's running in the background. Mm-hmm. It's not taking too much processor speed or using any other external peripherals at the time, and you opt in, and maybe it's just recording your life, or whatnot. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe there are streaming, reality TV NFTs. Who knows? But it is interesting, and I do believe they probably, I think Solana has some kind of partnership with Steppen.
Yes, yes, they do. So I mean,
it's all good.
It's an exciting thing to discover, and certainly they have the Steppen gear for people going to the store.
Oh, right, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Jumping around a little bit, let's kind of do a quick check-in on Ethereum and Polygon, which I think is interesting because this is per Blockworks. I didn't know this until I saw this piece it was on LinkedIn. There's a spectacular number of projects being built on Polygon right now. And I know some people have had some frustrations or concerns about Ethereum and the merge and the switch, but this is an incredible list. I mean, I'm just looking right now, like you have DraftKings building out its own validator node with around 55 million Matic staked. The NFL is doing a partnership through Ticketmaster, working on the Polygon network. Adobe, basically creating a new way of building NFTs without having to go through the technicalities of minting NFTs. Obviously, we've been talking about Starbucks and the ambitious Starbucks Odyssey, which is also powered by Polygon, or at least Polygon technology. Disney, which we just covered, is one of the major partners. I feel like, and the list goes on. Meta, Stripe, Nothing, Reddit. It seems like they've positioned themselves as the ultimate crypto company. I don't know what's happening here. That's a lot of big names, right?
I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. And it's really exciting to see these names. One in particular that one headline that caught my eye was Adobe, and, allowing artists to kind of spin up and, not have to go through, as you put it, the minting or technical process. My one question to that is, if you've ever spun up or created your own NFTs, you have to burn them, mint the NFTs. They're indelibly yours until you choose not to have it or sell it or trade it. I'm not sure what the ownership of that is. And for our audiences is, if you create an NFT and it says it's an NFT, but there's no, keys to it or, blockchain verification that's attached to your wallet, chances are it's not yours. So I think they have to kind of figure those things out. And maybe they mint it for you and they go through the process and then they give you whatever it is. There's a transfer of that IP in a lot of ways. Not sure yet, but it's interesting. And I think it's something they should totally kind of explore and have fun with. Because that's a prime audience, creators and developers and designers using those tools every day. And why not have something fun that they can kind of express themselves with? And perhaps they create, your Behance portfolio becomes or can have a storefront to it,
right?
Which is kind of cool. And I think it'll open up a whole new world and break almost like the traditional designers out of their traditional ways and get them thinking differently. And those are the people you want in this space, to our earlier point, breaking out of those, the Square NFT wall, How do you change it? These are the people, that's the audience they cater to. Developers, designers, these people are put on the earth to break the rules, hopefully. But yeah, that was one of the more interesting ones. DraftKings, oh my God, fantasy
unbelievable.
Sports.
The esports category, unbelievable potential there.
That's to me, that's low hanging fruit. Like that is completely, of course they're going to do it. Online gambling and sports betting and fantasy, sports things. It's like, yeah, it's a no brainer. And now you can start to trade, players and teams as NFTs. I mean, they could all be playing cards. There can be richer experiences with, meeting the players, maybe there's special edition ones that are more enticing or collectible or whatnot. To me, that's a no brainer.
Well, we're creating like little economies within economies within economies. And so it's really extraordinary when you think that this technology it's call it what you will, entrepreneurialism, capitalism, commerce. It's that on steroids, because everything that used to be just a thing you buy can now be a thing that splinters off into all kinds of tradable potential and it's resellable. And so looking at all these major companies, it's a little bit, it floors you a little bit when you see how big this is.
Yeah, the other one that kind of caught my eye, Matt, was Mercedes-Benz. Car company, people love them. It's a brand that people really have an affinity for. Now, just kind of going through the article a bit, I'm curious as to what they're going to be doing, but it looks like they're going to be giving you access to, all of your car data, your personal data within it, which in turn will help you maybe control that data, because people don't realize like your car actually has data in it. It is like a receiver, if you will.
Right.
You're connected to satellites. You're connected to a lot of things. Interactive, how-to guides or tutorials on how to use your new Mercedes-Benz, down to the basics of digital keys. Like literal digital keys or NFTs as physical keys. Which there's near field communication already kind of does a lot of that stuff, but it'll be really interesting how they break it out and make it really appealing to that core demographic of car buyers, for sure.
I would love to see something where you have like carpooling rewards points. If you have two people with phones, they're in the same car and you're driving together, you get some points like that. I don't know, just innovative ways of thinking about rewarding people for where they go and how they go and, how we use energy and what have you. So.
Absolutely. There's definitely, an environmental factor to this. There's legal factors. There's political factors, doing things honestly, opposed to kind of an old world way of kind of,
right.
Trust me.
Yeah. Like we want that validated trust that comes with blockchain.
We want validated trust, right? So it'll be interesting to see what happens there, for sure.
And definitely interesting to see too how much, when all of these different companies are building out their own platforms, I think the big question for people in the space is to consider how much are we going to be able to bounce between these worlds? How seamless is that process going to be? And will we need a company, or will we have something on chain that allows us to do that? Because, like they say, not your keys, not your coins, right? And I think there is a lot of truth to that. Are we just going to be kind of doing the same game within different corporate environments, or are we going to have a way we can move between worlds? That's, I guess, has yet to be seen.
We touched on it a little bit earlier, but I think the beginning will be a hybrid of 2.0 meets 3.0. And then once people realize that, wow, this is like the internet, but like broken into a million pieces. There's going to be a need for a Google or a search type of functionality. There's going to be need for stores to bring things into focus. It's no different than the advent of the internet. It was like, okay, we connected two universities together and we're sharing textbooks or knowledge. And then it blew up. And then you got search engines, to help people kind of rein them in, to rein people in. What that looks like in the metaverse and in blockchain in general, it's a very interesting question. How will people find things in a decentralized world, if you will? There's, with the advent of one technology spawns so many other services and so many other kind of products that complement it.
Do you think we land on one when we move between these worlds? Do you think we land on sort of a culture where we have one identity that stays more or less consistent, or do you think people will almost mutate into different identities based on the environments they're in? It seems to me I could almost see it going either way, where there's just one personality, your avatar, yourself, which makes a lot of sense. But I could also see a variation on it where you're different people depends on where you are.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think it'll be a hybrid. It'll be a choice. I think, with the advent of controlling your identity and your data more within the blockchain Web3 world, will come more choices and actually more responsibility, right? Because now you're the custodian of not only your avatars and gaming type of assets, you're also responsible perhaps for your blockchain car insurance, your healthcare. Perhaps you have more control over it, and there's more freedom. Subsequently, it's cheaper, but you are more of a custodian to it. So, from a psychological standpoint, I think there are people I know people shift gears. We're in the game mode. I'm Thor 566 and, I've got massive biceps and, ripped abs and the coolest.
But you can go to the gym in real life as well.
And then I'm like a scrawny guy, whatever it may be. But, not too scrawny. But so people, depending on who you talk to, like absolutely never use my real identity. We're seeing that more and more with even our clients. That development team is like, Pink Bunny 526 is your lead engineer.
And you don't know who Pink Bunny is. That's just who they are.
Exactly. Right. And the same is for entertainment and whatever else, or immersive environments or gaming in general. But people sometimes just don't want to be known, and they just want to have a good time without any other social pressures or stigmas or anything else. And they just want to live their life and do what they want to do in these virtual worlds.
Is it realistic?
And non-virtual worlds.
Is it realistic that as the space grows, people are going to be able to retain the same kind of privacy, though? Is that something hopefully, I think there probably are some benefits to that, but do you think that's going to become more challenging?
In the blockchain space?
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll just be exponentially easier.
Really?
Yeah. You could, theoretically, there's some debates about this, and it's like blockchain. Is it completely are you completely autonomous or anonymous? If you want to be, yeah. You can do it. The only thing people can track through Ledger is that a transaction happened.
That's kind of what I mean, because we can kind of deduct who you are by transactions, right? Like in the same way that credit companies monitor you.
But they don't see that it was Matt Sky or Rich Pasqua behind that purchase. So they know where it is, and I'm sure the government will figure out, how to extract some of that data. But and some of that data is relevant to the contract that is set up. So your name, your address is exposed to certain parties, but not everyone. So there's all different types of stipulations and details that each individual product on the blockchain will have to figure out for themselves, and people will have to figure out what they're willing to give away. I'm a huge proponent of the idea of data as currency. So this is finally going to come to life. I've been talking about this 15, 20 years now. The idea that people and their data, who owns your data right now? Apple, Samsung, Google, Facebook, certainly. And they go off and do whatever they do with it. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to talk about too much about that. But they do, there are good actors and bad actors, obviously. But the day is coming where our data is so valuable. First party data is hyper valuable to advertisers. And we'll be able to now, just like YouTube, you got 1,000 followers and you got some good leads and good runtimes on your videos. You are now monetized. You're making money because you're supplying content. Same thing with personal data. That's fascinating, and I can't wait till the tables flip.
Well, I especially can't wait to take a small piece of advertising that comes at us to be paid to pay attention, to be paid to say, hey, listen, you were going to advertise to you, but here's a little reward for doing it. And I think in some ways you get it because you get the services, but taking it to another, maybe a deeper level.
Yeah, I mean, you're paying for the article you're reading. You're paying for the game you're playing. You're paying for a lot of things, and that's okay. We become accustomed to it. But now I think, and it's not a transaction. It's just taken. So there are steps with the GDPR and a whole bunch of other things with first party data. That's kind of bringing a lot of this stuff to almost a grinding halt in a certain way. But it'll be interesting how we become like not only the consumers but the traders too, and the sellers of content. So I think now it's potentially become more of a two-way street, and it's a little bit fair, and I think you'll get a lot more for your buck.
We work with a lot of different brands.
Or your eyeballs.
we work with a lot of different brands, and do you have any advice for companies rethinking how they advertise in Web3, like what they should be on the lookout for? Because the game is changing for sure. It's not, I don't think it's going to look the way it does today, where you just maybe have the same type of targeting. It has to be a little different, right?
Yeah, and I think that's getting people involved in your products or your experiences, really serving up something that people will go, you know what, that was so cool. I'm going to give a little bit of my data away, or I'm going to contribute in this way, or I don't mind the entry fee.
Right.
And I think you're going to see a lot more of that. And it'll be a little bit more of that bartering and back and forth type of scenario.
I guess that's a good point. It's community building at its core. You're bringing people into your ecosystem or your culture, basically, your entire offering.
Yeah, and it'll be almost like little micro payments, maybe. And some of them will be very seamless and transparent. Some of them, depending on the severity of them or the level, will be a little more interactive and more of an exchange, if you will. But I think we're going to see end users probably get better products, digital products and services, and participate in the exchange, meaning the end user is the DSP, right? Mm-hmm. You are the actual ad server because you're putting it on a schedule. You're, as an end user, telling it what I'm allowing into the free world or a specific brand. So it's going to be really interesting and super challenging how to manage it and create the right experiences around it. Fascinating, though. It blows me away, and it's finally, that whole idea is finally starting to come to fruition, I think.
You're right, and it seems subtle at first, but it's not subtle at all. It's a very significant shift, even though when you just say it casually, it sounds like, oh, okay, I own it, they own it, who cares? But there's a lot of implications when that flip starts to take place.
Absolutely.
Just want to jump on one last story before we sort of wrap up today. This is Christie's 3.0. So they have been moving on-chain. So this is per Cointelegraph. I've got an article here. Christie's moves on-chain with NFT auction platform on Ethereum. It says the new marketplace allows the prestigious auction house to carry out auctions and sales on the Ethereum blockchain, quote, from start to finish. Here's a tweet from them. The first ever global auction house to host fully on-chain sales, introducing Christie's 3.0. Very dramatic. Built from the ground up together with 3 leading companies in the Web3 community, and they list Manifold, XYZ, Chainalysis, and Spatial XR. This seems significant in a lot of ways, I think, right? That you would be able to, these are auctions fully on-chain, right? There's no more, I don't know how they operate as an intermediary in this scenario, but that seems significant to me.
Yeah, I actually, I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about the historical end of the Christie's of the world and these auction houses and curators of auctions that have these amazing, tremendous reputations amongst the fine art, or precious art worlds at that too. They've been at this for a lot longer than you could even imagine. Some of Cody Marks Bailey, one of our clients for the Andromeda protocol, was working with a very large auction house way back in the day to validate actually the legitimacy of priceless pieces of art, sculptures. That means a professional would actually validate it, and then it's validated on the blockchain. It's indelible. And it becomes almost the starting point for Christie's and a lot of other auction houses. It becomes the certificate of authenticity, right? Right. It becomes your record that this has been, validated and checked out and photographed the right way and done, all of the proper things that are done. And it's cataloged, which could become perhaps your NFT of your art or whatever it may be, can be chronicled in a bigger collection or curated, they've been at it for a while, and I'm interested to see what they're going to do as far as NFTs. Is it beyond? Because they're already doing this. One of my friends, Josh Davis, was involved in a Christie's auction, and they're already doing these online auctions for digital art.
Well, they had the record 69.3 million. Christie's did. That was the everydays from people. Yeah. Yep.
But I think what'll happen is it'll actually become a legit Christie's online auction house. Some of these auctions will be just pure play digital NFTs, digital art, and or a combination of real world art that people can bid on with an accompanying NFT. That to me is kind of like the low hanging fruit there. The kind of the basics of what they're probably going to do, and that they're already doing it. But historically, a lot of these auction houses have been in this world already. So I think they're poised to do quite well. I'm not sure about sales, but I think as far as pushing out products that will really interest not just high roller art collectors, but everyday art collectors as well.
Right.
So I think there's, it's almost like brand dating, but Christie's and technology dating. It's an interesting combination, I think they'll do quite well.
It says Sotheby's has taken a similar interest in Web3 and NFTs, launching its own Metaverse. And you're right, that was in October of 2021. And so having its share of high-priced NFT sales also. So I guess this is almost like the new point of entry, right? If you want to do auctions in the 21st century, you should have blockchain validating that process along the way, if I'm right. Yeah.
Yeah, you validate the sales, then you can go into the details of the actual physical art and everything in between. So I think it's a no-brainer. Like I said, they've been in this space for a while, and I think they're poised to push it even further. I hope they do.
When you say you've seen this happening for a while, how far back do you mean?
Auction houses, probably 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot more than people realize.
Yeah. Basically, at the dawn of NFTs, meaning no one knew what an NFT was, but the creators, because we know them, the creators of the ERC 721 protocol NFTs were working. The first thing their minds went to is, let's validate art.
Right.
And then they tag teamed, and it worked. It actually became kind of the jumping off point for the modern NFT as we know it.
It's incredible, and incredible to be a part of that, seeing it like you did in real time before anybody even knew what it was.
It was kind of special to kind of hear about it and like, wow, that's amazing. Have your mind blown at a conference or speaking with some of these folks, and then forgetting about it for a while, and then going, oh my gosh, that's what they were working on, and actually see it come to life in large scale Christie's auctions to small scale OpenSea. You know,
when you go back 5 years, Rich, do you feel the space has moved faster or slower than you would have expected at that time? Do you feel like we're right about on pace?
Well, I kind of jumped in, and I made the mental mind shift many, many years ago. So I was like freaking out.
You're ready to go.
Well, your head spins with ideas, and you want to create products, and you want to try this, and you want to try that. But I think in the terms of like, if our audience is, you probably know about Moore's law. It's like every microchip or processor kind of exponentially gets faster and faster. The production end of it gets cheaper and faster.
Yeah.
I think if you were to look at the grand scheme of things, because I look at it, 2008, Satoshi and/or the cypherpunks created Bitcoin, and then it's like, wow, it's like the new digital gold, and that's all it really did. You could just buy it up, save it, trade it, make money on it. Then, around 2016, 17, that's when I started to see things really butt up. People were talking about things more. They were talking about deeper technology implications, more implications around utility and entertainment and everything else like that. That's when I think the dialogue started to happen. In my eyes, it could have happened a little faster.
There was a little slump there, right? Like it feels like there was the enthusiasm and that kind of came, but it's coming back and fast.
It's coming right back, and this is, I think, 2023, 24 will be. It won't trickle in; it will be a tsunami.
The exact same thing happened with .coms too, right? I mean, you had sort of all the .coms and then the .bombs, and then when you look at Web 2, just this acceleration, and there is no turning back from that. So it's almost like the same cycle happening over and over again, all the way into whatever Web 4 looks like. And we'll have to do Web 4 unpack.
Whatever that is.
That's our next
in the
podcast.
Ether. There's no hardware or software. It just exists.
It just exists in a purely theoretical space.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is moving fast. It actually is moving pretty fast. Like I said, once you wrap your head around it, you're like, I want it to go. I want this. I want that. I want to try this. Your head starts to go there before the technology, and that's been what's been happening with me. Is as a sci-fi fan, my whole life, I want the floating hoverboard. I want the flying car. We're going to see that, of course, but the blockchain is and Web3 is just kind of morphing into this really kind of interesting, amorphic, growing blob that is.
I like that's a new definition for it, but it's actually pretty accurate. But a
very unsophisticated, non-technical term.
The amorphous blob of Web3.
Yeah, and it is, and I use blob because as it's rolling forward, it's kind of pulling companies in, it's pulling people in, It's allowing people to think a little bit differently. The way we interact with each other, both online and in society in general, is going to change. And once you kind of start to understand that, it's pretty exciting, and you want it to speed up.
Right.
But it's going to move. It's going to exponentially get faster. That's kind of the Moore's law thinking behind it.
Something that's extremely unique to me, and this is different than the previous computer and technological revolutions, is that you're seeing at the highest level, just like all the companies we reviewed today, from Disney to Apple to Facebook and the endless DraftKings, Mercedes, etc. You're seeing the enthusiasm from all the corporations before the technology has fully emerged. And that's super interesting because in almost all these other iterations, it was the other way around. You saw all the underground folks into it, building it out, in their garage, they're building the internet, it's operating at a university level and what have you. And then finally, the final cap was when it was mature enough, corporations started to dive in. And here, Web3 is in its absolute infancy. No one even really, it is the amorphous blob, like you said. We don't fully know what it is. And yet companies are, kudos to them. They're diving in head first and saying, we don't know what this is yet, but we're going to experiment with it. We're going to play with it.
And it is an experiment for all of these brands, all of these companies. You could be spending tons of money for not, but I think it's proving itself that it does make the idea of transacting faster, cheaper, and more secure. Web 2, to your point, when did it all pop off? It jumped off and gained tremendous amount of momentum when people started making money online.
Yeah.
That's when it jumped off. It wasn't, in 1995, my dinky, design, Web 1, static HTML website, portfolio website. Nope. It's when people started making money and selling product and services. And that's, I think people kind of, understand that it's going to happen, but in a much different way. Big companies, governments, everyone, and storefronts, everyone in between understands that. Now you couple that with a bit more of a secure environment and trusted connections, you're able to operate a lot faster and more securely. And I think they understand it. Big companies will kind of, like Apple, dip their toes in. Apple is the master of waiting to see what the industry does and re-engineers it and creates in most cases, a better experience or customer experience or journey through design and creativity and design.
Masterful polishing of
exactly.
They take the blob and make it into a solid object. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, most of Apple's innovations, or what they call innovations, are polished up Android, Google. Now I can put in with their sport watch, their what is it called? The iPhone, the phone, Apple phone Extreme or something like that. Now they're going after Garmin's of the world, who have been doing it for 30 years, But they do it well. Apple does it well. I mean, there's nothing to complain about there. And if that's what you're into, that's what you're into. But I think it's all good, and some really interesting change is gonna happen.
So, Rich, I think we always kind of wrap up every episode in this way. If there's some major takeaways, and I think particularly for marketers, because when we're looking at these big companies, people in marketing and people in the branding space, what would you say are like two of the major takeaways you'd hope that they walk away with?
Just based on our Solana experience, that was really fun. That was really cool. I'll say I'm probably going to repeat myself, but NFTs are not, little square cubed graphics that you're buying on OpenSea or wherever else, Legend, or wherever you're buying your art. They're a lot deeper than that. There's a lot more potential to it. You got to see beyond it. You got to get to know the technology and go for it. And these digital experiences can be really satisfying, actually, these physical purchases with this different type of currency that you're using. It's kind of fun to play in that world. People are going to want it. The next generation is definitely going to want it. They're already there. My kids are already, yeah, Dad, big deal. Even to my kids, which I guess they're Gen Z now.
I can't keep track of the gens anymore.
Yeah, I can't really. It's almost like, yeah, big deal, Dad. Been doing that for a while. Micropayments,
right?
Roblox, like they've already been there. They're already doing it. So it'll be really interesting to see what the next generation actually transforms this into. And just because we're not that age, and just because you're not some, exotic developer, a developer, coding in exotic language, doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and it doesn't mean that people won't want it. So just think outside of the box and dive in and learn a little bit more. That's it.
It's a great point to wrap things up on. Everybody, thanks for listening. This has been Web3 Unpacked with myself and, of course, Rich Pasqua, CEO of ARC. And you can always learn more about us at arctai.com. And be sure to check us out on Discord. We'll, of course, provide those links. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.